part 4 of the glitch fuck bass hop the bullshit tutorial power course. My name's Tom Cosm. Now we have done one bass line, we've done 2 bass lines. The next one bass line I'm going to do, so we'll create a MIDI track, just to refresh you, create, insert MIDI track. I'm going to rename this to bass 3. This one is going to be similar to this one here, except instead of just having a womp, like I'm just soloing the track, let's have a listen. Instead of having that, I want to have a womp and a kind of another kind of powerful hit at the start, so it's kind of like chwonk, if you want. That's the correct terminology, I promise. So if we go into bass 3 here, I'm just going to solo it like before. I'm going to pretty much emulate what we did in bass 2, so I'll run through that really quickly. I'm going to load in an operator, all good. This is my sine wave. We're going to change the only oscillator that's on to a saw. I'm not going to EQ it like I did before, there's no point. Now I'm going to turn the filter on, bring the frequency down, right down, bring the envelope amount up. Remember this envelope says how much of this particular line, or the attack, decay, sustain, release, is going to be applied to this frequency. And that's actually sounding pretty good. Okay, let's just roll with that for the start. So that's the first part of the sound. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on this, group it, go into the chain selector. We'll call this start. Let's load another operator in here. I'm going to call this end. So just to refresh your memory really quickly with racks, racks contain a whole bunch of different instruments. We can rack up as many as we want here. We can put VSTs, we can put samplers, we can put synthesizers, anything we want. I've just got 2 here. I've got a start and an end. So start, if I solo it again. Now end, by default, just that standard sine wave. Let's change that again to a saw. Turn the filter on just like before, bring it down. Give it envelope. This time we're going to have maximum decay, maximum sustain. So it's going to be just the whole time that note's held down. That sustain means as long as the note is held down, what level do you want me to play at? Well, I want you to play at 100% of the frequency, so as loud as it can be. But if we bring the attack up, so we've got the first part, the second part together. Not bad. Now, what can we do with this to make it a bit more interesting? Well, this end one, for a start, let's use the spread function over here. So the spread function on the operator will split the signal into the left and right channels, and it will detune them just slightly. And that creates a really powerful stereo effect. It's a very quick way of doing it. If you're in headphones, this will be much more powerful, but I'm going to bring the spread up to 100%. That's with it, that's without. See how that spread it out? So now we've got the initial start is actually in the center, so that's in the middle, and then the second part of the sound is on the outside. What happens if we change this oscillator to a square? No, I like it as a saw, that's good. I'm almost happy with that. One thing I might do is, let's call this this instrument rack. We'll call this bass for now. I'm going to right click on that and group that. Okay, so I've grouped those together. Now the reason I've done that is because now in this instrument rack, which has a rack with 2 things in it, we can put an EQ8. I'm going to get rid of the sub frequencies. Oops, make sure you put the EQ8 after the rack, not after just one of the chains in the rack. It's all good. So I've gotten rid of the sub, and that's because I want to put a different sub in here. Now again, the reason I did that is because these 2 particular sounds, we've got 2 oscillators playing a low note, and they're going to phase cancel each other somehow. It's probably not going to make too much of a difference, but it could really end up I don't know, it's just good to be a perfectionist sometimes. So we've got our high bass, we should call that high bass now. High bass, and we've got a sub. Now on the sub, again, I added in another operator. By default, it's on sine. I'm just going to solo it. Now we talked about envelopes before on the filter. Of course, we've got envelopes over here on the actual volume, so I could have an envelope on the volume to bring it in. I could have an envelope, I could bring the sustain down, have short decay. So it's only going to play a single note. Don't want that. We also have, if we go over to this pitch kind of area over here, you'll see we have an envelope here, and this is called the pitch envelope. Now this envelope, this set of information, determines how the pitch of each note sounds. So if I turn it on, everything gets enabled. If I bring the percentage up to 100%, the pitch is now going to follow this line. You see we have a decay of 600 milliseconds, and the peak is at plus 12 semitones, so that's an octave high. So what's going to happen is this note is actually going to start an octave high, and it's going to take 600 milliseconds to quickly go down to the original pitch. It's starting to sound like a kick drum, really. If I bring the peak up right up here, and if I bring the sustain right down, and bring the decay short, we made ourselves a kick drum. But we don't want that. So, put the sustain back at 0, the original pitch. Bring the decay down, bring the peak down. Now you hear that, now that sub has a punch. It's just got a little bit of a pitch bump at the start. If I turn it off, very flat. If I bring it on, and this is good for these kind of sounds that have quite a good impact. Like this has got a, you know, if I begin with the sub, can you hear that? How it kind of has a really punchy sound. Not with these bass lines up here. You know, we've got these are kind of rolling sounds. These ones we want a real punchy, powerful thing. So let's start putting this all together slightly. So I'm just gonna yeah, I'll get rid of this because I'll save the project. So I'm getting rid of the MIDI information in bass 1, and I'm going to get rid of the MIDI information in bass 2. So now we have 3 bass lines, 1, 2, 3, and let's with that second bass line we created, let's do a big long whoop. Make sure you get the right pitch. And now let's go in here and put in some of these new ones we've created. This will be the wrong pitch again. I'm really bad at that. Oopsie. Open you up. Down, down. Let's make this a bit longer. See, it's only on 1 beat at the moment. Let's make it a whole bar. Make sure we drag this out so it knows. Actually, let's make it 3 beats in a bar, because we've already got the first beat covered by this one here. Actually, that'll do us. Let's just have 2 of those. And now, let's go into that first bass line we did and make a cool kind of sound. And we were playing with that fucking awesome, where is it here? Where was that one? That fucking awesome knob. So I've chosen that parameter, so now I can manipulate that a bit. And let's just see what happens if we do a sweep like this. No, that sounds horrible. So we need to actually zoom in, go back. Going to use the pen tool, make sure that we've got an adequate kind of size grid, and just change some of these. Now we can go in here and change these notes as well. So I'm just going to get off the pen tool. Let's go da da da. Just doing a D minor scale. So let's have a listen. This one here, let's have a listen here. It's all good, it's not really shining through. So back over to this EQ8 that we used to just cancel out the sub of that kind of high part of the bass. We can use this as well. I'm going to add in another pole by clicking on this 5. You see it gives us another one of these dots. I'm just going to start boosting frequencies and see if I can get it to sound a bit more chunky. You can change it so it's a bit wider. Sounding alright. I think what we need to do is go into this end one, and remember we had the envelope on the filter opening up like that. Let's make the decay a little bit shorter so that doesn't take so long. Oh, sorry, not the decay, the attack, my bad. That's starting to sound good. Now, one thing this is starting to happen is we've started to clip. Now, you'll notice down here in the master channel, we're clipping. So, what I'm going to do as a safeguard here is I'm going to drop everything down a bit. So, let's just go into the drums. I need to drag this out so we can get the overall volume of the group that the drums are in. Let's bring that down to -3. Bring this down a bit more. Just playing with all my levels here. Awesome. I'm going to do one more thing here. Over on after that EQ8, remember when we used the auto filter on that first example, we had our low pass, we had our high pass, we had a band pass, but we had a notch. It's not really doing much. Okay, flag that. I thought the notch would subtract enough frequencies that it would give us a nice kind of little phasing effect. Let's try something else then. Let's go into this EQ8. Let's group the EQ8, put the EQ8 inside a rack, inside a rack, inside a rack. So just keep up here, and we'll call this one we'll just call this the EQ. I'm going to duplicate that, so right click and duplicate, so now we have 2 copies of the EQ, but on this one, let's put an auto filter after it, turn it into a band pass, and we'll turn the LFO amount up, and put it into beats mode, so remember the LFO will latch onto the actual BPM of the tune, it should, and because the phasing is at 100%, it's actually going to phase to the left and right as well. So we've got one EQ channel doing the highs and one doing a crazy kind of sweep. It should be alright. Not bad. Let's change the shape of the LFO to a ramp up, or a saw up, a ramp up, so it doesn't go wah wah, it goes wah wah. If we bring the resonance up, that's pretty cool. So again, let's just go back to what we've got. We've got an instrument rack, which is our main parent. We've got a high bass. The high bass is split into 2 areas. It's got the start bass, which is that donk, and it's got the end part, which is that wub. So these are the 2 in here. Then this rack, after that, we have another audio effect rack, which splits it into 2 separate channels. So the sound is getting split into an EQ, which is just cutting the sub and boosting the highs ridiculously. And then we've got another EQ, which is doing the same thing, except it's got an auto filter with an LFO, which is sweeping it up and up on each hit, which kind of gives it a bit more presence. Let's have a listen to that now all together. That one's probably a bit loud. Alright, I'm happy with that. That's bassline number 3. And what did we call that one? We should give it a name. Chipponk. Fuck, I suck at names. That's all good. This is why I don't make presets. Too self-conscious about naming them. Alright, yeah, cheers. Bassline number 3. TomCosm.com. That was part number 4, bassline number 3.